North Carolina is climbing the ranks of states where people want to move for retirement. WECT's Michael Prats talked with the moving company's data expert who broke down those numbers.
The Sunshine State tops the list of places that retirees want to move, but the Old North State is right behind it in second place. In 2022, North Carolina saw nearly 10% of all retirees move here. From the coast here in southeastern North Carolina to the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina has plenty to offer. Take into account the lower cost of living compared to places like California and New York, along with the mild climates, and you've got a nearly perfect place to retire. Right here in the Cape Fear region, we've seen a huge growth in our population, and retirees make up a noticeable portion of those newcomers. While it might not be Florida, which took the top spot with 11.8% of all retirees moving there, North Carolina's appeal is catching up. Miranda Marquit is the chief data analyst for Hire a Helper, a moving company who used Census data to track the migration patterns. She said for the first time since 2014, the majority of retirees moving are looking for cheaper housing instead of quality of life changes. The cost of living here might not seem cheap, but compared to other places around the country, North Carolina is an affordable alternative.
This is a nice alternative. Florida, the Villages is still, one of the most popular places for retirees, but it's starting to get expensive. And North Carolina is a really nice, balanced place to go that offers a really great package at a really great value.
You might be surprised to hear that the majority of these retirees are coming from places like Oregon, Texas, and Idaho, while New Jersey and Maryland were the only two states in the top 10 list of where people are moving from. In Wilmington, Michael Prats, WECT News.